Hi guys, good morning. Yeah, it's dark because it's 5:30 in the morning. And I'm sorry you can't see my face, but that's probably a good thing. I wouldn't want to frighten you or anything. Because what with everything we're going through, I don't think any of us look particularly great and we feel like absolute shit, let's face it. But if you're feeling really good and happy and all that, but maybe you do every now and then for like 1 second. I don't know. Most people feel like shit. Most true souls feel like shit. And that's, we're so used to being told that when you're doing the work, you're going to feel really good. But it's not like that at all, I have found over the years. The closer you get, as it were, to your objective, right, the harder it gets. That's not to say, mind you, you know that saying, it gets darkest before the dawn, and then it just keeps getting darker and darker and darker and darker, and you get the distinct feeling that you've been had. Oh God. Oh dear. See, I've talked about the skill a lot, yeah. You could always call it the shift or crossing the abyss or whatever you want to call it, but I'm able to hold the light, and that's really quite something to be able to do at this point, I feel, because I wasn't able to do that before, even say about 6 weeks back. I wasn't able to do that. Then I had that whole thing, remember, with my tooth and all that shit went down, and that was the clinching factor that shifted me in a massive way, proving to me yet again that shit happens, shit that's happening for quite a few soul travelers at this precise moment in time. Cataclysmic events, occurrences happen that on the external plane are threatening, terrifying, right? Humiliating, grief, all kinds of stuff. But they also shift us into the heart, into our true power, into the light of fucking truth. And you have two choices. You can see it as a negative thing and not facilitate that shift then, or you can allow yourself to rage and rant, have a good rage, bang your head against the wall, go and do something to get that hate and that rage and that victimhood, that sense of victimhood and all that. Get it out of your system, because it's going to come up. It's the hell contagion. Get it out of your system, and then you'll get to a place where you're able to just be a neutral witness, witness it, see it, feel it, but you keep releasing, you keep releasing, you keep releasing, you keep releasing. Yeah. Then you get to a point, the skill, where you realise, oh yeah, I get it, right, it doesn't have to be this way. So what is it I want? Here's the thing. You cannot receive what you deny yourself. And what do you think the hell contagion is? It's trauma-based mind control, consciousness hijack. Look around you at the world. Observe people and observe yourself, and you'll see soon enough what it is. I mean, you become very aware of this. It's like what's happening on the external plane right now with this new scarians. It's just utter bollocks. I mean, it is so obviously bizarrely ridiculous. It is literally only there for the NPCs. It really just is, right? Because anyone with a soul at this point, at this juncture, will say, right, that's bullshit. Literally there to sort the chaff from the wheat. And there is an interesting little parable in the Bible all about that, where there's this farmer and he's growing this stuff and he's quite successful, something like that, and his neighbor, who is a nasty NPC and who's jealous, sows these bad seeds, in his neighbor's field, in the farmer's field. And the crop comes up slowly, and the farmer notices that, oh shit, there's all this there's these toxic plants all amongst my good plants. But he knows that there's only one way to deal with that, and then to let them grow up together. And when he takes in the harvest, as inevitably he will sort the wheat from the chaff. And that, I feel, is very much what is happening here, guys, okay? That's just my sense of it. I do not feel that what is happening on the external plane, that is triggering us in so many different ways, I do not feel that it's a bad thing. I do not believe that it is a sign that evil is winning. No, I don't. I have my moments of, fear, and this is what it's all about. You see, I came across some footage about indigenous peoples in Canada and Australia being forcibly taken, abducted by the government and forcibly injected, etc. And then I saw the way it was put out there, and I realised that it's a psyop and it's not actually happening. At least I don't think it is. But what happens then? Everybody, the usual suspects, jump on top of that and perpetuate that message, right? The same with the debacle in Austria. Same old shit. Now, I've spoken about predictive programming. I've spoken about how consciousness creates reality, and how the dark hand uses the hell contagion infected consciousness to create what it wants. This is how it's done. And so whilst we're being terrorized by, oh, this is happening, and oh, that's happening, and then all the usual suspects say, oh, perpetuate that same shit. Oh yeah, this is happening, and they are doing this. There's a guy saying, oh yeah, the army is going from door to door in Austria, kicking doors down and grabbing people by the scruff of the neck, dragging them out into the streets and forcibly injecting them. Do you see what I mean? And I was just looking at the comments, and it was like, oh my fucking, people just believe anything they hear, and they exist in a state of abject terror. And this is exactly what the dark side wants. That is where it lives. And of course, this also is playing out on the internal plane. It's a very strange miasmatic experience, this, because all of that shit on the external plane, if you let it, triggers you. And at this point, you will feel that heavy, putrid fear. It's a bit like, when you smoke a lot and your lungs are all brown and gluey with tar. It's a bit like that. Heavy, putrid, toxic sludge, which is fear. Nothing good will come from it at all. And yet the leap of faith then says, what can you do? What do you want to do? You have two choices. You either allow yourself to be oppressed by this, allow your consciousness to be used to create this evil shit, or you can become the observer. Allow yourself to let that go. I've been doing that quite a bit, and even over the years I've noticed how, oh, this is happening and oh, that's happening on the so-called conspiracy circuit of things. This happens all the time. It's a giant predictive programming hub. Always has been. Some of it is true, is happening, but a lot of it is Chinese fucking whispers, man, and it's like, oh, they're doing this and they're going to do that. And then you go, these people going, oh yeah, this is what's happening, and then it is brought into reality. You see, it's our consciousness and it's our responsibility, and it's our responsibility to choose to take that leap of faith. I know that not everyone is ready for that. I know that not everybody is getting, tuned into the skill. I mean, it is trauma-based mind control, consciousness hijack. So if you're still in the torture chamber of trauma, I am not having a go at you, and I'm not telling you that you're wrong. It's an inevitable part of your journey. Everybody has to go into that, to face these demons, to work through it all, bit by bit by bit. It's like going into a house. It's a beautiful, magical mansion, but it's old and it's full of dirt and old furniture and all kinds of a few dead corpses and whatnot, and you've got to go in and clean it out, and that's just part of it. When you're there, you do not see, you cannot see the wood for the trees, you still believe yourself to be powerless, though you may be very busy self-deluding and self-destructing into thinking egotistically that no, I don't, and all that. I know, because I've been there, but then again, I have to be honest, I've always been quite good at being brutally honest with myself. I think it's the only way, so get round to that as soon as you can. It'd be a good thing. But when we're looking at the skill, the ability to hold your power, hold your light, despite all the baiting, despite all the fear porn, despite all the attempts at predictive programming, consciousness hijacking, and no, because the skill it's not a mental thing, it's not on a mental plane. It's very much about a feeling. It's a feeling of wholeness, a feeling of oneness with yourself, wholeness, of knowing, feeling intrinsically that, hey, this is me, this is my consciousness, I'm a creator being. What is it I would want to see? What do I want to create? What do I want? And that, funnily enough, serves as a kind of trigger as well, because there is still hell contagion there. There is still some black hand activity there saying, oh, but that's not possible because, for example, right, I'll give you a good example, I suppose. My Looms, my white cat, I had to put him in a bath. I put him in a bath every sort of 4 to 5 weeks because he doesn't wash himself. Most cats are very fastidious, but he's not. It's traumatized because he was abandoned and his fur was all matted, and it was a bad thing. He stopped washing himself and he's never really washed himself since. So I put him in a bath. So I put him in a bath, gave him a good wash with his special shampoo. The day after that, I was looking at him and it's like, what the fuck is going on? His fur looked greasy, it was yellow, he was smelly. It was like I hadn't put him in a bath at all. And when was this? Let me think. I think it was Thursday, yeah. Either way, it was a dark day. It felt energetically so putrid, it was beyond words, right? And, all the usual hype and all the usual crap on Facebook and stuff. And, and I don't even go there anymore. I don't listen to any of that shit. I don't pay attention to it anymore at all. I just don't. But you go on Facebook and it's something just comes up, or somebody sent me something in my email and it was like, wow, what the fuck. It was one of those days and I looked at Looms and it was the feeling of he's not going to be with you much longer, he's going to be passing on soon. His little spine bones were really sticking out and he looked really thin. It was bad. It was like, what the fuck? I gave him a bath yesterday. It filled me with fear because, again, it was this whole idea of like, well, see, there you go, Anika. Mundane reality is immutable. It is set in stone. There is nothing you can do. You are going to lose your Looms. And that means that there is no way out. This is, you know, it is all set in stone, and the only way out is death, and which is a complete lie. And oh, it just brought it up, and I felt it on my skin, you know, I felt it inside me and on my skin, like get it out of me, get it off me. Dirty, bad, dank, horrible nastiness, appalling. I'm not the only one who's been feeling that. Other people I know have been feeling like that as well. So, you know, I had to work through that. I get up today, and he's there, his usual self, waking me up at ridiculous o'clock, bellowing for his first breakfast. And he's all white and clean. You know, I picked him up, I gave him a cuddle, he's purring. You know? Like, what the fuck? Now, if that doesn't prove to a body that this reality is not fucking set in stone, then I don't know what does. I mean, the Mandela effect has ramped up to ridiculous levels now, where it's like, hold on a minute, what the fuck? And I mean, literally, like, wow. All these heavy black hand influences of no you can't, and no you won't, and no you won't, and you mustn't, and you inducing such a terrible state of torment, you know, in a souled being, in the living waters. Wow. Just wow. And to have that indelible courage to rise out of that and take back your power and hold your light, to arrive at that point where you can do that, is a miracle. That is a miracle. That is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. And I never, you know, honestly, I was looking at videos of myself a couple of months back, and I'm like, wow, Nick, you weren't there then. You weren't there yet then. But you are now. Progression has taken place. I remember in May of this year, I was told the seven, and that something was going to start happening in the 7th month, and I was a bit incredulous, you know, I was a bit like me, but it happened. That's when the shift began into the skill. It really did. So whilst it's still really, really difficult for me, and incredibly painful, and physically, it's like, wow, I told you guys, didn't I, that I saw that weird electric blue flash of lightning in my living room, and then underneath my shoulder blade, ouch. Well, my body's been feeling like a fucking train wreck. My teeth have been shooting pains in my teeth, like fuck. And I mean, like that dirty, get it out of me, get it off me type shit, and just all kinds of nuances and whatnot. But I've been able to let it go, to surrender, and keep letting go, keep letting go. I've been doing really well with that. I've kept taking that leap of faith and tuning in to the other side of myself, that true self-consciousness of self-love and self-support, and literally nurturing myself through it, talking myself through it, supporting myself really completely. I mean, even as I'm sat here now and I can feel my body, and it's horrible. It's like, and then, you know, the whole thing with looms, and it was like, see, there you go. And it just wants to inundate our consciousness with a sense of defeat. Defeat. You're doomed. You're powerless. You know? It brings up emotions I don't even have words for, right? Because it is so dense energetically, this toxic shame construct, the prison, and that black hand influence, and the way in which it literally tortures us and torments us, and just, oh boy. We live in a terrible state here. Everybody around us does. Nature too does. You know? And yet, we also have the maverick effect, and the Native American people call it the Great Mystery, which is a pretty good name for it, really. It is a paradoxical realm. There is great beauty, great goodness, and amazingness here, and it cannot be denied, you know? Some would deny that because they're so filled with victimhood and rage that they would just deny all goodness. And I think that's a big mistake, but if that's where you're at, then that's where you're at. You know, I've been there too. Not for very long. I mean, I would go into that for a bit and I'd come out of it again, you know? Because when you go into something like that, in a state of consciousness like that, you really are in hell. You know, you learn not to stay there. You learn that, no. It's deception. It is truly deception. All of the darkness and this entire realm and everything that seems or appears to be happening and all these different timelines and possibilities and events and non-events or it's just literally it's like a great quantum sea. Consciousness creates reality, but it's not at all what we think it is. It's so much bigger than that. It's the dark side, the black hand and the hell contagion that has simplified it to ridiculousness, to just like a tiny kernel of black. I mean, it was weird because I came across something, and then it was this guy I know, and he just kind of lost the plot a bit. Anyway, that triggered something in me, and I was asleep, and then I had nightmares about a certain type of consciousness, which is very mass consciousness, where, you know, you're sort of atheist, doesn't believe in anything. You get these cars drive around with a sticker on the back saying "One life, live it," like that's somehow really meaningful, but in fact it's just about it's just whenever I get that, I get really agitated, less now than before, but it still agitates me. How can you be that fucking stupid, you know? But it's your NPC, of course, right? Because that's all there is for that. But this is the type of consciousness that exists as in the form of like a wall. It's just a wall, that's it. There are no possibilities of any kind. There's just like you get what you're given, and I want doesn't get, and you just got to put up with it and go with it and amass a fortune and, you know, despise those who don't and that sort of thing. It's this total putrid evil limitation. The wall. But a smidgen of that consciousness lies within all of us. It's part of the programming we were subjected to. You see, mundane reality reinforcement has many different aspects, many different nuances, many different... it's difficult to put into words, but I think you know what I mean. So it is a prison. It's just like a building. It has to literally be cleared out of us, alchemized, detoxed, cleared out. And I think that is why many of us are feeling dirty, you know? The more you can objectively stand back, have faith in the process, in the journey, and keep letting go, the better it is. Anything else, staying with it, believing it to be the truth, is literally torture, absolute torture. Many things are happening, events are happening, physical ailments, material disasters, and of course there's the usual fear mill going around with regards to anything happening on the external plane. It's a packet of fucking lies, guys, because literally this is not... Reality is not... reality, I keep saying that, man. See, we're even programmed in sort of like the language that we use. And language, when you look at the origin of words, etymology, oh man. It's interesting because I have a really good friend and we have a very strong telepathic connection. And we often communicate without using any kind of words at all. which is great. And I remember, I have vague but very real memories of communicating, well, sounds, colours, feelings, or just melding and communicating. I was, whatever, it's beautiful. Words are fucking clunky. And there is so much present in this experience that we can't put into words, Another element of it as well that I've been experiencing a lot of late is the loneliness. I don't know how many of you are really tuning into that of late. Yeah? That overwhelming sense of isolation and loneliness. This kind of almost desperate need to commune with someone else who sees you and who can mirror you back to you. Somebody who's on the same page, but inevitably, you might find someone like that online. Kiss. But of course, most of the time, anybody can pretend to be anything online. And what you really need, what I crave as well, and I'm lucky because I do have, that, but I would like more of it, is people on the ground, boots on the ground as it were, in the vicinity, people that you can get together with, that you can look in the eyes with, sit with, commune with, physical proximity. But it goes beyond that. This loneliness is another program. It is a deliberate it's a deliberate attempt at disempowerment, but it's so much bigger than that. It literally is. You're all alone. There is, forever and ever and ever. All alone and powerless and small and defenseless forever and ever. And forever a witness to all the suffering taking place on the day-to-day and not being able to do anything about it. So then you're automatically moving into a kind of like it almost has a sense of remorsefulness, as in I have failed to protect so-and-so, I have failed to heal so-and-so. So then that leads into codependency. I have to fix this, I have to do that, I have to take responsibility for. You can see how it's all connected, right? There is a real sort of, one of the biggest traps, mechanisms I find. That there's hate, there's rage, there's self-hate, there's all this type of stuff, victimhood, lots of different ones that are sticky enough in and of themselves, and it will take you probably ages to work through it and able to get to what I call the skill to become more and more objective and keep letting go. But there's one, and that is a kind of, it's a mixture of grief, sorrow and remorse, and a sense of it's all your fault, you have failed. That I've experienced. Now I live in Devon, and so I up on the moors, which is quite a sort of bleak, desolate landscape. I like it a lot. It's all granite in the ground, and it has a powerful energy for me. Also, it's a place of high strangeness. There's all kinds of weird shit going on up on the moors. And a friend of mine once heard, whilst he was walking, he heard voices and sort of like weird funfair music, in the middle of nowhere. But, where was I going? What the fuck? Totally lost my train of thought. Bloody hell, I hate it. I hate it when that happens. I suppose it is very early. What the fuck? Oh, how annoying is that? What was I talking about? Please, quick, remind me. yeah, they're sort of so up on the moors, and they're sheep. Yeah, they are the farmers. They're not very nice people. There's barbed wire everywhere, sheep. Of course, when you go up on the moors, none of that is there. It's just wilderness, and the silence, and I love it there. But preliminary, there's the farmers and this and the other, and there's the wild horses as well, and I really love them. And I love animals and I love nature. But, a big part of it is the grief and the sorrow and the kind of like I said, like almost kind of like a remorse. Because I do see animals suffer a lot. Because these idiots put, say, barbed wire up, and a deer got stuck in this barbed wire, and they had to put it to sleep because it was there for 3 days, and that cut me up in a big way. And for some reason, I mean, like I saw that little sheep, baby sheep, and it was so thin, and that really cut me up because there was nothing I could do. You know what I mean? And this happens to us all, us soul travellers. If you're a real soul traveller and you have empathy, which is it is the prerequisite for any soul traveller. If you don't have that, then you're not a soul traveller at all. To have this overwhelming love for all living beings, nature, animals and soul beings, living laws of life, and to want to safeguard them and heal them. That is your primary reason for being here. That is your objective in a way. This is, and which is why you heal your consciousness, because when you do that, you will heal everything else. I firmly believe that. But there is that element, the grief trap, the sorrow, remorse trap. You're reminded of where you got it wrong, where you might have hurt others, where you might have, gotten it wrong. And we've all gotten it wrong, often, because we're so wounded, guys, So there's that whole scenario going on. There's these hell waves of loneliness and isolation and grief and remorsefulness that are highly encapsulating, and that you have to work to release that guilt, that remorse, that somehow you should have been able to prevent that from happening, and you're all alone and you failed, and it's very miasmatic. And I've been feeling all of that. And again, working through that and realizing that, oh, wow, interesting. That thing with the grief and the sorrow, because that doesn't feel toxic per se, does it? It kind of feels like, oh, it's a righteous feeling and it's helpful. And it is helpful to feel, and it's helpful to cry and let it out, but it's not helpful to stay with it. It's not helpful to let it control you and manipulate you. It's not helpful not to see the the guilt programming that, oh, you have failed in your mission somehow, and you got it all wrong somehow, and it's all your fault, and you should have done this, and you should, and look, there's another dead animal, and oh, look over there, and oh, look over there, and how terrible, no, there's nothing you can do, and you know how all that goes, right, around and around and around. Because, people, we do have the power. Consciousness creates reality, and it's not set in stone. We will go all the way back and all the way forward and create the light reset and heal the living waters of life. That is why we are here. We are a part of the living waters of life, and we are not alone. We belong in the great cosmic all. We are the great cosmic all. We are powerful creator beings. We are beings of light. We are infinite unconditional love and harmonious creativity. And we will see all restored resplendently. I really feel that strongly, despite all the suffering, despite all the nuances, despite it all, the churnings, everything. I see that and I feel that, and I will stick with that. Despite the black hand coming in going, Well, what if you're wrong? You're tempting fate. You shouldn't say that. No, it won't happen. You see all these nasty hijack attempts. No, I am taking my leap of faith. I love myself. I love all the living waters of life. We belong. All shall be well. We shall be restored resplendently, beautifully, magically, miraculously. And yeah, the black hand always, oh, there are no miracles. Oh, you think back on your life, when have you ever had a miracle? Blah, 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 you know. And don't listen to that voice, guys. Yeah, don't listen to it. It's a nasty piece of work. It's a liar. It's a liar. But oh, man, shit will happen. Shit will happen. That will make you tremble in your fucking boots. That will make you think, fuck. No, because if that happens, then that means I've been wrong and there are no miracles and we are trapped here forever. And you see? It's not an easy one, is it? It's not an easy one at all. But I continually now, I will choose to have faith. Not in some external power at all, but in my own power. Because that's really what it's always been, you see. Many are deceived. Many are deceived by the lure of these external hierarchical power structures that proclaim to be here to help humanity and whatnot. And they're all false and they're all fake. The only power there is your own. You know, and that is that. There is the great mystery. I call it the great mother, or I could sometimes call it the maverick effect. But that is not some external hierarchical power. That is simply... It's a bit like... do you remember in DS9, Deep Space Nine, Star Trek, where you had the changelings and they had the great link? It's a bit like that. We're all connected intrinsically. You know, that's what I mean by the belonging. Consciousness. And all these lights. The sea. The connection. Yet the individuality. You know, individuality. Yes, I am, and you are, and you are, and you are, and you are, and we are. It's made us think that we're all broken apart, but we're not, you know. We are still connected, but... And this is another element that's coming up for me a lot, is relationships. Friendships, romantic relationships, familial relationships. How do we relate? How do we relate? That's another major hijack area, guys, and one that we need to really start looking at with a massive torchlight. Because how we relate... and how we allow ourselves to be related to shows us much, you know. Sovereign consciousness is not codependent, but it is interdependent. You know, it honors itself. It honors others. We do not take away from others that which belongs to them. They have their quest. You see, and we cannot fix other people's problems. You know, we cannot take away from them that which is rightfully theirs. Their path, their journey, their quest. You know, codependence, you know, and there are so many nuances to relationships in this realm, and it's toxic beyond words, truly. And again, you become more and more aware of that. And at some point soon, I'll probably do a video about it, and I'll talk about it more in depth. But I'm still going through a very deep process whereby I'm really looking into that. I'm really becoming aware of, ow, geez, man. Because again, it's all programming. We live in a realm where denial, you know, is the name of the game. The emperor simply wears no clothes. And everybody's pretending everything is great. And when you're used to interacting with NPCs, like yesterday, I had to go to Tavistock, get a few bits and pieces, and it was all NPCs, and it makes you feel like shit. It is an energy siphoning operation. So I'm there thinking, I'm not doing this, and I put up my defences, and I honour myself, and I do go to the Whole Food shop where the people are really good and they're salt and they're wonderful. I've got that sorted out. It's interesting actually, because that shop, those people, I used to think, were NPCs, and it was all a bit ooh and a bit but something inside of me shifted, and then oddly enough we started to be able to relate, and all of a sudden the whole dynamic has changed, and it's been different ever since, and it's been actually really good. See, that's another nuance of this experience, telling you it isn't fixed. It's weird. On one level, you're dealing with somebody who's an NPC, and it's like, fucking hell. Something inside of you happens. 7 months later, you've shifted to a higher frequency, or whatever you want to call it. You meet that person, and they're not an NPC. They have empathy, and you have a really good conversation. It's like, wow. You know what I mean? Miraculousness, guys. The maverick effect, guys. Let it inspire you. Let it give you solace. Let it urge you on to higher ground, okay? Evil, as in the black hand, the dark generator, always wants you to think that you're doomed, and defeat is a fact. You're doomed. You're finished. You're worthless. You're powerless. You got it wrong. And look at all the suffering, and there's nothing you can do, and you're all alone forever and ever and ever. All of these. But then you need to remind yourself and write this down if need be, of the maverick effect, of the great mystery, of all these incredible things that have happened. Remind yourself, write them down, because sometimes when you're really deep in a purge, like I said before, you know, it literally blocks off your access to that miraculousness, that goodness, that which nourishes you. You know, it's like it's not there, and you're all alone in the dark, and it's like, oh, it's all bad, and it's all terrible, and it's, oh, you know, we all know that, don't we? So write it down, because you can then go back to these little notebooks and go, oh yeah, right, I remember now, and it helps you. I do that. That's why I write it all down. Because it is all very real, guys, and you will see now that you will more and more shift into the light. You will more and more hold the light. You will hold your light. It will be all right, pussycats. I think I'll call it a day there. You know, I'm gonna go and have a cup of tea now and whatnot. I know it's all been really, really fucking tough. I know. And I know for some of you, you don't see that light. You think, you know, like, what's she talking about? This skill? What the fuck? I feel like absolute shit, and I'm full of hate, and I'm full of this, and I'm full of that, and I can't take anymore, and this and that. I hear you, you know, I do. I've been there too, and I still feel like that too in some way, but I now know it ain't the truth. But even as I'm sat here saying that to you, I get the black hand influence going, oh, what if you're wrong? Maybe they're right, and you're wrong, and evil always wins, and there's nothing you can do. And you've just said it now, you've tempted fate, and ooh, now you're in trouble, you know? But I know it's a lie. I know this because of all the miraculousness that I've experienced, and that I've written down in my little books. The maverick effect, the great mystery, the great mother, the magic of love, you see. So, you know, I know it's going to be all right. And don't worry if you find yourself languishing in the darkness and you can't seem to get out, because you will get out. I know you will, I promise. You'll see. It will be okay. All my love to all of you.